Heavenly Stories.
In the ancient hills of Judah, where the sun painted golden hues across the horizon, tragedy had already struck one small family. Elimelech and Naomi had once left Bethlehem with hope in their hearts, seeking refuge in Moab during a devastating famine. They carried with them their two young sons, Mahlon and Chilion, believing that greener pastures awaited them beyond the border. But as the years rolled by, Naomi's life was marked by loss. First, her husband passed away. Then, both of her sons, though married to Moabite women, also died young. Naomi was left with nothing but grief. She stood in Moab as a widow with no sons, no heirs, no sense of belonging. The weight of despair clung to her like a heavy cloak. Her only companions were her daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth. Both were Moabite women who had loved their husbands deeply, and now, they too shared in Naomi's sorrow. When whispers reached Naomi that the famine in Bethlehem had ended and that the Lord had once again blessed the land with food, she decided it was time to return home. Her heart longed for the soil of Judah, for the familiar paths where she had once walked with her family. And so, with a weary spirit but determined steps, she prepared to leave Moab. As the three women set out on the road, Naomi's heart ached with guilt. She could not give Orpah or Ruth a future. She had no sons left for them to marry, no wealth to provide, no security to offer. On that dusty path, Naomi turned to them with tears in her eyes and urged them to return to their families. "Go back, each of you, to your mother's home," Naomi pleaded. "May the Lord show you kindness, as you have shown kindness to your husbands and to me. May you find rest in the home of another husband." The air grew thick with sorrow. Orpah wept, kissed Naomi goodbye, and though it tore her heart, she turned back toward Moab. But Ruth could not let go. Her grip on Naomi's arm tightened. Her eyes shone with a fierce resolve, a love deeper than duty. She refused to leave, even when Naomi begged again. And then Ruth spoke words that would echo through history. "Do not urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if anything but death separates you and me." It was not just loyalty, it was covenant love. It was a choice made not from convenience, but from unwavering faith. Ruth, a Moabite widow with no promise of a future, chose to walk beside Naomi into uncertainty. She chose a new land, a new people, a new God. From that moment, their destinies were bound together. Side by side, Ruth and Naomi walked toward Bethlehem, not knowing what awaited them. Behind them lay loss and sorrow. Before them lay a story of redemption that neither of them could yet imagine. And as the women of Bethlehem would soon whisper at Naomi's return, the journey of Ruth had only just begun. When Ruth and Naomi entered Bethlehem, the town stirred with whispers. Women peeked from behind doorways, men paused at their work, children pointed with wide eyes. Could this be Naomi, the woman who had left so many years ago, now returning with nothing but grief carved into her face and a foreigner at her side? Naomi's eyes no longer sparkled as they once did. With trembling lips she told the women, "Do not call me Naomi," which means pleasant. "Call me Mara, for the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty." Yet even in her bitterness, Naomi carried a treasure she could not yet see, Ruth, whose loyalty burned brighter than the midday sun. Ruth said little as they arrived, but her heart was fixed. She had promised Naomi her life, and she intended to keep it. Soon the barley harvest began. The air filled with the scent of grain, and fields swayed like golden oceans. Ruth knew they had no food, no income, and no men to provide for them. She made a bold decision, to go out and glean. In ancient Israel, the poor were allowed to follow behind harvesters, gathering leftover stalks of grain. It was exhausting work, humble and often humiliating, but it was survival. With Naomi's blessing, Ruth went out at dawn. Her feet carried her across uneven fields until she came to one particular plot of land. She bowed low, picking up the stray stalks, her hands growing rough, her back aching. Yet she pressed on, determined to fill her basket for Naomi's sake. What Ruth didn't know was that this was no ordinary field. It belonged to Boaz, a man of standing, wealthy and respected in Bethlehem. Boaz was a relative of Elimelech, Naomi's late husband, a detail that would soon prove to be more than coincidence. When Boaz arrived to oversee his workers, his sharp eyes quickly noticed the foreign woman stooping in his field. Her posture was weary, her clothes simple, but her spirit radiated quiet strength. Boaz asked his foreman, "Whose young woman is that?" The overseer replied, "She is the Moabite who came back with Naomi. From morning until now she has been working tirelessly, with hardly a moment of rest." Boaz's heart was stirred. He approached Ruth with kindness, breaking the silence of her labor. "My daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field. Stay here with my servant girls. Watch the field where the men are harvesting, and follow along after the women. I have told the men not to lay a hand on you. And whenever you are thirsty, go and drink from the jars they have filled." Ruth froze, her breath caught in her chest. Why would a man of such stature notice her, a foreigner, a widow, a nobody? She bowed low to the ground, her voice trembling. "Why have I found such favor in your eyes, that you notice me, a foreigner?" Boaz looked at her with steady eyes and replied, "I've been told about all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you left your father and mother and your homeland to live with a people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." In that moment, Ruth's heart felt a spark of hope she hadn't known since tragedy struck her life. She was no longer invisible. She was seen. She was valued. That evening, Ruth returned to Naomi with her arms full of grain, far more than she had expected to gather. Naomi's weary eyes lit with wonder. And when Ruth told her about Boaz, Naomi's lips curved into the faintest smile. "This man," Naomi whispered, "is our close relative. He is one of our guardian redeemers." Unknowingly, Ruth had stepped into a story far greater than survival. The God of Israel was weaving threads of redemption, through fields of golden barley, through the kindness of a stranger, and through the loyalty of one Moabite woman who refused to turn back. The stage was being set for a love story that would echo through generations. The weeks of harvest passed quickly. Every morning, Ruth rose before the sun, wrapped her shawl tightly, and returned to the fields of Boaz. Day after day, she gleaned faithfully, her hands calloused but her spirit unbroken. She worked among the reapers, and always, Boaz kept a watchful eye on her. He made sure his workers left behind extra stalks for her. At mealtimes, he invited her to share bread dipped in wine vinegar, roasted grain, and cool water. And though Ruth never sought attention, the kindness of Boaz was undeniable. Naomi, meanwhile, watched closely. For the first time in years, hope flickered in her chest. She recognized the hand of God guiding them to this man. One evening, as Ruth laid down her bundle of grain, Naomi leaned in and spoke with urgency. "My daughter," Naomi began, her voice steady yet filled with emotion, "I must find a home for you, where you will be provided for. Is not Boaz, with whose servant girls you have been, a relative of ours? Tonight, he will be winnowing barley at the threshing floor." Ruth's brows furrowed. Naomi's tone hinted at a plan. "Wash yourself," Naomi continued. "Put on perfume and your best clothes. Then go down to the threshing floor. But don't let him know you are there until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, note the place where he lies. Then go, uncover his feet, and lie down. He will tell you what to do." The request sounded strange, even risky. Yet Ruth's trust in Naomi was unshakable. With quiet resolve she answered, I will do whatever you say. That night, under the stars, the threshing floor buzzed with celebration. Workers laughed, the smell of grain filled the air, and the clinking of cups echoed in the dark. Boaz ate, drank, and after a long day's labor, lay down near a pile of harvested grain to sleep. The moon cast silver light across the floor as Ruth approached silently. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. Carefully, she uncovered Boaz's feet and lay down at the edge of his blanket. She waited, her breath shallow, her future hanging in the balance. Around midnight, Boaz stirred. Startled, he turned, and there was Ruth, lying at his feet. Who are you? He asked, his voice low, his heart pounding. I am Ruth, she replied softly. Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a guardian redeemer of our family. Her words were bold, daring even. This was no ordinary request. Ruth was essentially asking Boaz to take her under his protection, to claim her as his wife, to redeem the legacy of Naomi's family. For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. Then Boaz's face softened. The Lord bless you, my daughter, he said. This kindness is greater than that which you showed earlier, you have not run after the younger men, whether rich or poor. And now, don't be afraid. I will do for you all you ask. All the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character. Ruth's chest swelled with relief. But Boaz's words did not end there. Although it is true that I am a guardian redeemer of our family, there is another who is more closely related than I. Stay here for the night, and in the morning I will see if he will redeem you. If he is willing, good, let him redeem you. But if not, as surely as the Lord lives, I will do it. Ruth remained at his feet until dawn, her heart steady with hope yet trembling with uncertainty. She rose quietly, carrying a generous gift of grain Boaz sent for Naomi, a symbol of his intent. When Ruth returned, Naomi's eyes searched her face, hungry for news. Ruth recounted every word. Naomi smiled knowingly, her voice calm yet sure, wait, my daughter, until you find out what happens. For the man will not rest until the matter is settled today. And so, the story shifted from Ruth's daring step of faith to the decisive action of Boaz. Would he truly redeem her? Or would another man step forward? The dawn had come, but the outcome was still wrapped in uncertainty. The sun rose over Bethlehem, casting long shadows across the narrow streets. The city stirred with morning life, merchants opening stalls, children chasing each other through alleys, women carrying jars of water. But Boaz had only one purpose that day, to settle the matter of Ruth's future. He walked with firm steps to the town gate, the place where business was conducted and justice was decided. There, elders gathered, witnesses stood ready, and agreements were sealed before the eyes of the community. As Boaz sat down, the very man he sought, the closer relative of Elimelech, passed by. Boaz called out, "Come over here, my friend, and sit down." The man obliged, unaware of the life-altering decision about to unfold. Boaz also summoned 10 elders of the town to witness the matter. Then, with calm authority, Boaz presented the situation. Naomi, who has come back from Moab, is selling the piece of land that belonged to our relative Elimelech. I thought I should bring the matter to your attention and suggest you buy it in the presence of these seated here. If you will redeem it, do so. But if not, tell me, so I will know. For no one has the right to do it except you, and I am next in line. The man leaned forward, interest flashing in his eyes. Land meant wealth, crops, and legacy. I will redeem it, he declared. For a moment, Ruth's fate hung by a thread. But Boaz was not finished. His voice was steady, but his words carried weight. On the day you buy the land from Naomi, you also acquire Ruth the Moabite, the widow of the dead man, to maintain the name of the dead with his property. The man stiffened. His brows furrowed, his breath hitched. To take Ruth meant to raise up children in Mahlon's name, not his own. It meant his inheritance would be divided, his own estate at risk. After a pause that seemed to stretch into eternity, he shook his head. Then I cannot redeem it, he said firmly, because I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it yourself. I cannot do it. The elders leaned closer, the crowd murmured. This was the moment. According to custom, the man removed his sandal and handed it to Boaz as a sign of relinquishing his right. With sandal in hand, Boaz rose and proclaimed before all, Today you are witnesses that I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Chilion, and Mahlon. I have also acquired Ruth the Moabite, Mahlon's widow, as my wife, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property, so his name will not disappear from among his family or from his hometown. Today you are witnesses. The elders and the people cheered. Their voices rang through the gate like a blessing of heaven itself. We are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the family of Israel. May you have standing in Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem. Through the offspring the Lord gives you by this young woman, may your family be like that of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah. Back at Naomi's home, Ruth waited anxiously, her heart torn between hope and fear. When Boaz returned, his eyes met hers with a steadiness that calmed every storm in her soul. Ruth, he said gently, you are no longer a stranger in this land. You are my wife. Tears welled in Ruth's eyes, not of sorrow this time, but of joy, relief, and awe. She had once been a foreign widow with no future. Now, through loyalty and faith, she was welcomed into a new family, her life redeemed. Naomi, standing behind her, felt the bitterness she had once claimed begin to lift. No longer would she call herself Mara. The God of Israel had proven faithful once again, weaving redemption out of ashes. And so, the love story of Ruth and Boaz began, not in wealth or grandeur, but in loyalty, faith, and the quiet faithfulness of a God who never abandons his people. Yet, the greatest chapter of this story was still to come. The wedding of Boaz and Ruth was unlike any other in Bethlehem. It was not just a union of two hearts, it was the restoration of a family, the redemption of a name, and the fulfillment of God's quiet providence. When Ruth walked through the streets as Boaz's bride, whispers followed her, but they were no longer filled with suspicion. Instead, people smiled, blessed, and marveled at how God had taken a Moabite widow and placed her at the center of a story far greater than she could imagine. Naomi stood among the women of Bethlehem, tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. She had once returned to this town empty, broken, convinced that the Almighty had abandoned her. But now she watched as Ruth, her faithful companion, entered into joy she had never thought possible. For the first time in years, Naomi's heart felt alive again. Time passed, and the Lord, who had guided Ruth from Moab to Bethlehem, blessed her womb. Ruth conceived and bore a son. The cries of the newborn echoed through Naomi's home, filling it with warmth and laughter. The women of the town gathered around Naomi and exclaimed, Praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a guardian redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel. They looked at Naomi with compassion and joy. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons, has given him birth. Naomi's arms, once empty, now cradled new life. She pressed the baby against her chest, breathing in his warmth, her lips trembling with gratitude. She had lost so much, but God had written a new chapter for her, a chapter of restoration. The child was named Obed. He grew up under the love of Ruth, Boaz, and Naomi. And though he was just a boy in Bethlehem, his life carried a destiny that stretched beyond the imagination of all who held him. For Obed would become the father of Jesse. And Jesse would father David, the shepherd boy who would rise to be king of Israel. Through Ruth's loyalty, through her decision to cling to Naomi and to the God of Israel, the royal line was born. And from that line, generations later, would come the greatest Redeemer of all, Jesus Christ, the Savior of the world. What began with tragedy in Moab ended with a promise that spanned eternity. Ruth's story was no longer just about a widow who found love again, or about Naomi who was restored from bitterness to joy. It was about God's faithfulness to work through ordinary people, through pain and loyalty, to bring about his extraordinary plan of redemption. The women of Bethlehem, who once whispered about Naomi's bitter return, now rejoiced over her renewed joy. The story of Ruth spread through the hills of Judah as a testimony that loyalty, love, and faith in God never go unseen. And Ruth, the foreigner, the outsider, was forever remembered as the great-grandmother of a king, and a woman through whom God would weave the thread of salvation history. Her words still echo through time, "Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God my God." What began as a vow of loyalty between two widows became a legacy of hope for the entire world. Generations passed, but the story of Ruth never faded. Around the fires of Israel, parents told their children of the Moabite woman who chose loyalty over comfort, faith over fear, and love over self-preservation. Her words, spoken on a dusty road to Bethlehem, became a beacon of devotion. "Where you go, I will go. Your people will be my people, and your God my God." It was not just a vow to Naomi, it was a declaration of faith in the God of Israel. Ruth stepped into a story she could not see, but she trusted the one who held it. And through her faith, history was forever changed. Obed grew, and Naomi's laughter filled the courtyards of Bethlehem. The once bitter widow now rocked her grandson to sleep, whispering blessings over his tiny frame. The women of the town looked at her with awe. They had watched her return empty and broken, but now they saw her cradling the future of Israel in her arms. Ruth and Boaz raised Obed with love, teaching him the ways of faith and integrity. Their home stood as a symbol of redemption, proof that loyalty and righteousness never go unnoticed by God. Every harvest, Ruth walked through the golden fields that had once been a place of survival but were now a place of abundance. She remembered the long days of gleaning, the humility of bending low to gather scraps. And she marveled at how far the Lord had brought her. But Ruth's legacy reached far beyond her own lifetime. Obed fathered Jesse. Jesse fathered David, the shepherd boy who became king, the man after God's own heart. And through the royal line of David came Jesus, the Messiah, the Redeemer of all humanity. Think of it, Ruth, a Moabite widow with no wealth, no status, no power, became part of the lineage of the Savior of the world. Her loyalty to Naomi and her faith in God carried eternal significance. What the world might have dismissed as small, a decision to stay, to love, to be faithful, God wove into the greatest story of redemption ever told. Her life is a reminder that the choices we make in loyalty and love are never wasted. Ruth teaches us that God sees the quiet sacrifices, the unseen devotion, the moments when we choose faith even in the face of uncertainty. He turns those acts of faithfulness into legacies that ripple through generations. For the people of Bethlehem, Ruth's story was a testimony of God's kindness. For Naomi, it was the restoration of joy. For Boaz, it was the blessing of a noble wife. But for the world, it was the opening of a door to the Redeemer who would one day walk those same hills of Judah, healing the broken and offering eternal hope. And so, the story of Ruth still speaks today. It tells us that loyalty matters. That family, whether by blood or by choice, is sacred. That love rooted in faith can change destinies. And that no one, not even a foreign widow from Moab, is ever beyond the reach of God's redeeming hand. Ruth's journey began with loss, but it ended with legacy. Her story, wrapped in loyalty and crowned with faith, stands as a beacon through the ages, a reminder that sometimes the smallest steps of devotion lead to the greatest chapters in history. Her name lives on, not just in the pages of Scripture, but in the lineage of hope itself. And the echo of her vow still invites us all, "Where you go, I will go. Your people will be my people. And your God will be my God."